They want us to think that we're an insignificant speck of dust, but let me tell you, we are so much more than dust in the wind.
At least 4 billion useless eaters will be eliminated by the year 2050.
I'm still waiting for somebody to show me gas pressure without a container.
I personally don't believe anything they say, right down to the God they claim they worship.
None of the math adds up.
You could stack up all their math books, all their science books, and even put all their degrees stacked up on top of that, and you still wouldn't be high enough to see the curvature.
This is exactly why grounding is so important.
We see too far.
We're just regular people who know we're being lied to. We're tired of it.
The bottom line is, there's only one choice left, and that's to dismantle this whole thing from the top down. Welcome to the Phone Booth Podcast. Please keep your arms and legs inside the phone booth at all times. We are not responsible for any lost or stolen souls, destroyed realities, or blown minds. I am Ted Theodore Logan, here with my good friend Bill S. Preston Esquire, the man that shreds time almost as good as he shreds guitar, Rufus, and the man with a black robe for every occasion, Death. Welcome, everybody.
What's up, Ted?
What's going on? So tonight we actually have a guest. It's not just going to be us jabbering at each other. We have a man who's an author of the book called Gray Skies. He's getting ready to come out with a podcast called Savage One, and I can't even begin to tell you about how interesting his life is, so I'm just going to let him explain it. This is Robert Treat. Welcome, Robert.
Hello, Ted. How you doing?
Doing good. So we want to hear all about all the crazy stuff you have to tell us. So you can start wherever you want, and we'll just kind of go from there and see where it goes.
All right. Well, I guess best place to start is the beginning, right?
Yes, exactly.
I guess when it began for me, everything started for me really at birth, quite literally at birth. My mother, biological mother, she was a bartender in Houston, Texas, back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And, she was married, but she worked at this very exclusive private club called Sir Walter's, this place out in the woods, private membership, kind of an elite crowd. And there was this group of 6 men who used to come in there, and she told me that they would arrive in a black limousine, like a Lincoln Town Car kind of thing. And when they would arrive, these 6 guys would arrive, everybody else in the club had to get up and leave. No questions asked. Don't make a sound. Don't finish your drink. Just get up and get out. Well, she ended up having an affair with one of these guys. I was the product of that affair. Her husband obviously wasn't happy about that, so she ran away to Alaska to live with her sister until she came to term with me. She put an ad in the local Anchorage newspaper, and she, put me up for sale pre-birth, for 10 grand. And this oil driller and his wife, they purchased me right at birth. Right after I was born, like right after I came out of the womb, right? It was policy then not to put, babies who were going up for adoption in the nursery with other kids. So the charge nurse, she put me, in a closet down in the boiler room. But that night she either quit or got fired. I don't really know the story. I went up to Alaska, and I was tracking my biological mother down, and I spoke to some of the staff that worked there during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was missing for 4 days, right? And, I think that really built, the fact that I survived 4 days, in the dark, no nourishment, no care, nothing. I think that was what largely set the stage for the person that I became later.
Mm-hmm.
That and my parentage. She said these 6 guys, this guy that she had the affair with, she didn't even know his name. They all referred to each other by numbers, right? And
Wow.
They all spoke with, she said, either British or Australian accents. Um, and all that really meant nothing to me at the time.
Yeah.
Growing up, like I had no knowledge of the story, no knowledge of my background. Um, but there's something odd about this oil driller that adopted me. Um, we left the country right after they took possession of me, a week old. We went to Sliema, Malta. From there, we went to Kenya. We moved around quite a bit.
Wow.
And by the time I was 2, we were living in Norway. And I think that's where I had my first encounter with the Greys, but I'm not sure because it's just a fragment of a memory.
Yeah.
And I remember standing on the back deck, and I looked up, and over the trees, I saw a light coming in over the trees. And the very next thing I know is my first adopted mother, Betty, is yelling at me about where the hell have I been. And I remember standing in the kitchen. She's by the sink, and I'm looking up at her like I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. What do you mean? Where have I been?
But she's irate. So I was gone. I don't think it was too long. I mean, a 2-year-old, about 20 minutes, and you're gonna really start panicking, right? If you have a 2-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
anything longer than say about 20, 30 minutes, and you're calling the police.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just estimating it was probably around the 20-minute to 60-minute mark that I was gone or out of her sight. I don't have any remembrance other than that fragment. The next memory I have that was actually very vivid was I was 4.5. Well, let me back up just a bit. After we left Norway, my adopted father, he took me, left his wife behind there in Norway.
Wow.
And he took me and fled the country. Where he took me was a little island country called Borneo, and a region of Borneo called Brunei. And in Brunei, it's ruled by a sultan, the Sultan of Brunei, who's one of the richest, most powerful men in the world. Most people have never heard of him, but this guy is one of the elite. So he dropped me off there at the Sultan's palace and left me there for a year. Like, he took off. Don't know where he went, what he was doing. And to my little 2, 3-year-old.
Look at you, buddy.
So to my little 2, 3-year-old self, this was normal, and I had the run of the palace. And the people and beings that I saw there, because they weren't just, they were humans, but they were very strange looking humans, right? Didn't think anything about that. But in hindsight and looking back, what is an oil driller from Oklahoma doing, leaving his little bastard adopted child with the Sultan of Brunei for a year?
Good question.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't staying in the guest quarters. I wasn't staying in the stables, right? I had the run of the palace. This is not a normal thing.
Yeah.
And
So
how old are you at this time again?
between ages of 2 and 3.
Okay.
And he came back, collected me. We went to Tehran for about 6 months while he did a job there. And then we moved back to Africa for a little bit, and then we ended up in Scotland, Aberdeen, Scotland.
Wow.
So we were living we got our first apartment in Aberdeen, Scotland when I was about 4.5. And I'm not sure that exact time. It was right around there because it was just a few months before my 5th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
But not long after we moved into that apartment, Jay, my adopted father, he calls me out of my bedroom late at night into the hallway. And this is where things really began. When I stepped out into the hallway, there was Jay to my left. And I turned and looked to my right, and there were 3 little beings, right? Which we now call, the Greys,
Yeah.
the alien Greys. I had no concept of what these things were, right? I'm a little kid.
Yeah.
This is the early 70s. I've had no exposure to sci-fi, comic books, anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what they were, but they grabbed me by the shoulders. And I slipped out of their grip, dove forward, trying to get away from them. They caught me by the ankles. And snatch me by the ankle. So I'm face down on the rug as they're dragging me.
What?
But where there should have been stairs, right? So there was the hallway, and it went down the stairs to where the front door was. When I turned and like I'm face down on the ground, when I turn and look, the stairs weren't there anymore. Instead, there was like a tunnel, like a corridor, and it was a white corridor, like a hospital corridor, right? That's what it reminded me of, was a hospital corridor. And they're dragging me by my ankles face down. And I remember grabbing at the table where the phone was. Back then you kept the phone in the hallway,
Oh yeah.
So I grabbed that little table by the leg, and I remember everything going crashing on the ground, the lamp, the phone, everything. And I'm screaming, screaming my little lungs out, terrified. And I looked up, I looked up, and there was my father, my adopted father, just watching it happen. And the way I felt in that moment was like, it's a good thing I didn't know swear words. I'd already been using them,
I can't imagine.
It was just like, really, dude? Like, really? You're just going to sit there and watch this, crap unfold? Like, you're going to do nothing to help me.
Yeah,
right?
betrayal.
So he could see them taking you into this hallway. It was an actual physical. Now, do you think that the hallway was attached to the house, the place where you're at, or can they just create these out of, instantaneously?
Well, what I learned later, as I got older, had more encounters with these things. I came to feel like that they were taking me to like another world, like what we would understand today as another dimension. And where they at the end of the hallway was this examination room, right? Your typical, quintessential description of, where you undergo these medical tests, right? But it seemed like I was framing everything in the terms of like, the magical, mythical world. Because what I had experience with or knowledge of was like, fairies, elves, dwarves, the mythical creatures, right? Not aliens, right? So that's what I thought they were like, fairies or elves or something like that. And they were dragging me into their world.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, at any point were you just like, is this a dream? Is this really happening right now?
Not at that point. After they were done with me, they put me on this thing that looked like a doctor's exam couch, right? I had medical appointments and seen doctors, so that's what, it seemed to me as.
Yeah.
And that was when I first spoke, and I asked them, I said, "Are you going to hurt me?" And they said yes. And
my God.
As soon after they said yes, I was just completely fine. I was no longer afraid. I was still processing the fact that I'd just been completely, utterly betrayed by my father. And my thought when they said yes, the thought in my head was, at least they're honest. At least they didn't lie. So the table tilted back. They opened my mouth. I felt something push up into the roof of my mouth, and I could feel it crunching as it went up in there. And before they even extracted the needle out of my mouth, another one was going in the back of my head. It hurt. I was crying, I was screaming, but I noticed that with the screaming, I wasn't actually making a sound. Right?
Just nothing
it was
coming
all
out. Just
right. There's nothing coming out of my mouth. The screaming was in my head. And it was all over pretty quick, right? And then I noticed that there was the three little aliens that took me, but there were two taller ones. And I would guess they're like between 5'8", 6 foot. They're about the size of my dad, right? And he was 5'10". So one of them came over, and they had blue eyes. And he leaned down, he put his face in my face, and he took the pain away. And at that moment, it was when I felt gratitude. I almost began to feel a connection to them. Not only did they not lie to me when I asked if they were going to hurt me, but after they were done hurting me, they took the pain away from me. And as a little kid who'd already, experienced more shit than I deserved, right? really started to feel like a trust with them, you know, like the early stages of love almost. The way they treated me, even though it was scary and all that, was,
Mm-hmm.
you know, more compassionate than I'd been treated before. So after it was over, after he took a pain away, the last thing I remember is just seeing those blue eyes. And then I woke up in my own bed, my own room, and that's, to address your question, that's when I started wondering, was that a dream?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, did that really happen? So I got up, and the first thing I did, when you wake up, is you got to go pee, right? So I walk out of my bedroom and I look to my right down the hallway just to see, if the stairs were there, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the stairs were there, but that little table that had the phone on it with the lamp
It was still
was
knocked over.
it was still knocked over,
Oh God.
right?
Oh man.
So now this is the thing with your first abduction is that you experience like almost a fractured reality, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Because in every other way it felt like a dream, but there's that damn table,
Yeah.
you know. So now I don't know what happened. Um,
Wow.
I'm sure you were trying to like reason with your own brain and come up with some logical explanation. I mean, at that age, maybe not. Maybe at that age, you're just in it and just
I was
accepted
just,
it. But
Yeah,
I just
just
kind of,
accept it.
yeah. I mean,
Well,
I kind of shook it off, but I could still feel them. Like
yeah,
I wanted to see them again. I mean, even from that very first morning afterwards, I wanted to see them again.
So it's almost like they sensed what you had gone through prior to and knew that that would comfort you if they went for that part of your brain, I guess to say. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, well, I learned later why they go for that part of your brain.
excellent.
okay.
Because this was just the first encounter out of many more to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, but one thing, if there's anybody else out there who has experienced that, once you're touched by them for the very first time, you're always touched by them. You're always going to feel when they're around, and you're always going to kind of know when it's coming. Um,
Wow.
and that grew to be a comfort for me throughout the rest of my childhood. Um, just knowing that they were there, that they were real. There is something else besides this.
Yeah.
yes.
The excellent.
I feel like they have to be able to connect with you somehow, like telepathically, especially the way they remove the pain away.
Yeah. And the second time I encountered him was just maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. It was less than a month. I know it was less than a month.
What?
And I was always hungry. I mean, I was never fed. I don't recall a single time in my life in my childhood where I got breakfast.
Jeez.
Rarely got lunch. Got dinner most of the time, but not always. So I was always hungry as a kid, right? And I remember, Jay, he wasn't around. My dad, he wasn't around, and I'd gone out of the apartment in search of, something to eat. Some days I'd find something to eat. Some days I wouldn't. Um, right next to where our apartment was on that block, the block over was one of those British parks like you may see on TV and movies that are walled in with a stone wall.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay.
There was one of those that was on the next block over, and down the end of that street was one of those little corner shops. So a little 4.5-year-old me, I'm heading down towards the corner shop, just hoping that between the time I left the flat and the time I arrived down there, that something would come up.
Yeah.
So as I'm walking past the park, I could feel them again. I could feel that same presence I felt that night.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like it was coming from the other side of the wall in the park. So I go into the park, and I'm just kind of letting my emotions guide me. And I get into this one area of the park up against the wall, and there was like a lot of trees and shrubs up against the wall. In the middle of the park was all lawn, and around the borders was overgrown with bushes and what have you. And I could just feel this presence coming from where these bushes are. So, I went in there, into the bushes up against the wall.
Oh wow.
And, I felt this voice in my head that said, just continue on your journey. You will find what you need. And, it clearly wasn't my own thoughts, my own head voice, right? But I heard it in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And, I thought it was, the fairies or whatever they were talking to me again. And as I walked out of the same gate that I came in, heading back toward this little corner shop, I looked down on the ground and there's a big silver coin. It was just a 50 pence piece. It was half a pound.
Wow.
Right? And back then that was quite a bit of money. I mean, you could buy quite a bit with 50p back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just all excited, and I took that as a sign that they were watching out for me.
Huh.
Because when I'd walked in, that coin was not there. I mean,
Oh.
I'm 4.5
Wow.
years old, right? I'm close to the
Yeah.
ground, and I
Yeah,
walk
you
with
see
my
everything.
Yeah.
and I walk with my eyes down. This is a big shiny chunk of metal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think if I hadn't sensed them and I had not gone in there, that my little journey had not been interrupted, that I would have passed that point before whoever dropped that coin.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
by diverting me pulling in there, interrupted my journey enough to whoever walked by dropped that coin, and I came out and intercepted it. Right?
And it was in the bushes?
No, it was just on the sidewalk.
Okay, it was on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
While you were walking towards the bushes where they were directing you to go.
Yeah, I walked in, and it wasn't there on the ground.
Right.
It was right by the gate. Right.
Okay.
And I don't feel like I could have missed that.
Yeah. No.
So I
No.
walked
Especially
into
being a
the gate.
hungry kid and money on the ground, you wouldn't have missed
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
kids don't miss money on the ground.
No, they don't.
Yeah. So, if I hadn't walked in the gate, gone into the back, into those bushes, heard the voice, come back out, and there it was.
Wow.
Which meant I got to eat that day, which is, a big deal.
Good day.
So you didn't have any like food sitting around the house or anything? Like when I was a kid, I would be scavenging I'd be eating all the raw hot dogs laying around or whatever I could find. We didn't have much, but whatever I could find.
Yeah, I mean, our apartments, our little flats back then, they only had these little tiny refrigerators, like the size you would find in like a hotel room.
Yeah.
Back then the British, Scottish people, we didn't have big American style refrigerators, right?
Okay.
You shopped one day at a time, and usually your breakfast would be delivered by the milkman, right? They'd bring your milk, your butter, your eggs, your bread, yogurt, bacon, everything. But my dad, who was single at that time, unmarried, he never put in. We didn't have a milkman come by. He never put in orders. So
Yeah.
there was never anything to eat in the morning.
Oh boy.
And then a few months after that, he gets me in the car and he takes me to. He says, there's somebody he wants me to meet. So we go. I remember we pull up at this huge, or what seemed to me to be this huge mansion, right on the banks of the River Dee in Aberdeen. And I remember the sound of the tires crunching on the driveway, all that. And we go up to the front door, and he just opens up the front door, goes in. And this is one of those really old British style homes. It had a room when you go in the front door, right? So the front door is a little room. There's another door.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they called that a vestibule.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the little kind of ante room to keep the heat or the cold air from leaving the house and getting outside.
Makes sense.
So there's a little bench there, and he tells me to sit there and wait. And so I'm sitting there, and it feels like hours, but it's probably only 15 minutes. A little kid
Yeah.
sitting there alone. Everything seems like forever. So he comes back in, and he's like, and there's this woman with him, young woman, and he says, this is your new mother. And
Whoa.
yeah, and I remember looking up at her, and I still remember the thought in my head was, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the hell are you getting me into now, Dad?
And she looked at me with the same same hatred, right? So I mean, it was this was war at first sight, right?
Sounds like she didn't have a choice.
Yeah, well, I learned later she was only 17 when she married my dad. So she's 17, about to inherit a 5-year-old. It's just right before my 5th birthday.
Wow.
So my new stepmother was barely 12 years older than me. So she didn't want a 5-year-old American kid.
Unbelievable.
But my dad had money, so that was probably it.
You never saw any of that though, huh? It's not even feeding you.
I knew my family had money. I just knew that they didn't give a crap about me.
Wow, man.
At this point, had you have had a chance to talk to your dad about the Grays yet? Or
no. After that first time when I saw him watching it and doing nothing, I was pretty much done with him as a father.
Right.
Yeah, man.
That whole parental relationship was just over. There's no repairing that.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So we ended up moving in like right away into that big house, which was, my new stepmothers. They were already married. Like, that was another thing that pissed me off was, they were married. I wasn't consulted. I wasn't told. Like,
this is what's happening.
Here we are. Suddenly he's married and we're moving in with her parents. Right. So I've got a new mom. I've got new grandparents, and they're like an old school conservative British family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Old school rules, like no elbows on the table. Everything's very, structured.
Mm-hmm.
Children should be seen and not heard, and preferably not seen either.
That
was
well then.
Yeah, I heard that my whole life. Children should be seen and not heard, and preferably not seen.
Oh man.
So I end up my new bedroom, right, is upstairs towards the front of the house, and that very first night, I heard noises like all night long, and after a few nights of hearing this, I started seeing what was making the noises. There were ghosts walking through my room all night long.
What?
It's an endless stream, like right from the foot of my bed where the window is, all the way to the door, in front of this old armoire.
Mm-hmm.
They're just walking through all night long, and it was kind of scaring the hell out of me. I didn't know what these things were.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't know they were ghosts, right?
So they full definition or shadow people?
They were mostly solid, about 80% solid. You could still see through them, but you could see.
Oh, like facial features, the whole nine?
Yeah, I mean, you could see they were people.
Wow.
Damn.
Now, do you
from
think,
all these,
do you think
all
there's
these different
anything
styles of clothes
that made this, like, if you've had experiences with aliens and ghosts, do you think there's anything in your life that kind of made you a magnet, or just able to see, made you desirable to these things, or do you think it was just chance?
Well, now I think it was less to do with me and more to do with the first time I encountered the Greys. It's like once you're touched, once you're touched by them, things,
right?
Your entire structure of reality becomes different.
Yeah, definitely.
What you experience, the way you think, how you see the world, right? And these ended up being lessons that would serve me in my career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even now when I talk to people about what's going on in current affairs, right, they're like, oh, there's this and there's that. And they're buying into all of it, right?
Yeah.
Whether they're buying in on the conservative side or they're buying in on the liberal side, or they're falling in the middle just as, trying to be unbiased researchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still falling into this pattern where they don't know how to see, right? They're seeing the world as they interpret it, okay?
Or as it's laid out for them.
Yeah, like like you're educated in patterns of thinking. Like you don't even know, you're not even aware it's happened to you, right?
Right.
Um, and one of the ways I explain, how to see the world is kind of what the Greys ended up teaching me later, not in so many words, but um, are any of you like into art, like fine art?
I
Not
wouldn't say fine art.
not necessarily.
I
No.
would say, I am, and my brother's an artist, pretty damn good
Mhm.
one. But
See,
yeah,
I'm
go
not.
ahead. Go ahead.
See, I'm not artistically inclined in any way.
Oh, me
I
neither.
I can't
Okay.
draw, I can't paint, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. Um, but um, the way they taught me how to think allows me to appreciate art. And if like a way to learn how to see, to truly appreciate art is when you encounter a painting. You allow your eyes to focus in towards the center of the painting, and then slowly expand your vision to the edge of the painting, and then
Mhm.
slowly bring it right back into the middle again.
Yeah.
And now that painting, you see it in a completely different way. You know, the detail, how the artist laid it out now becomes a part of your awareness, right?
Okay.
Um, so that encounter with them allowed me to see the world kind of in that way. The details that are just missed at first glance.
Mhm.
Sure.
Um, so through that experience, right, I think it was that encounter was really what changed me to the point where I now see things that nobody else sees. Um, whether it's ghosts or human intention. Um, a lot of people think I'm psychic because I predict the future with such accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm not psychic. I don't see the future. It's just one. I see causality, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Where one thing is going to lead to another. Um, it's all my life. It's like people are like, how do you know that? How did you know that was going to happen? And to me, it's just it's rational. It's logical. That
You just game it out instantly.
yeah, and that's the thing with the alien phenomenon, UFO phenomenon, ghosts,
Mhm.
werewolves, all of it's connected, right? And as I got older, spent more time with them, and that their communication is telepathic. They're nonverbal.
Mhm.
It's not that they're not capable of being verbal. They are capable of being verbal. But if they were to speak to you, you wouldn't understand it anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Right. Um, so their telepathic communication is the only way to connect and communicate with us. And what I would experience in that communication was like, almost like a pressure in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I would see a symbol or a series of symbols. Then I would see an image of what they were trying to convey, and then I would hear the translation in my own head, right?
Whoa.
So say, they're trying to say hamburger, right?
Mhm.
You'd see whatever their symbol or series of symbols is for hamburger. Then you would see a picture of a hamburger, and then you would hear hamburger in your own head.
Wow. So it was like a step process. Like it went through it.
Yeah, but it all happens like in an instant.
Instant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but your ability to understand what they're saying is directly connected to your knowledge base and your vocabulary. If you don't have the knowledge, the experience of the vocabulary to decode what they're trying to communicate,
Mhm.
you don't get anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's just noise.
So as a
But
child, you're just not understanding exactly what they mean.
right, you're missing a whole lot.
Mhm.
But once that communication takes place, it's like permanently in your head.
Mm-hmm.
So as you grow and you acquire more information, more vocabulary, more knowledge, it's like those doorways open up so the communication you may have got 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier, or more,
Mhm.
right, will just suddenly just pop open and decode.
Wow.
Right? It's like once it's in
Wow.
there, it's always in there. Right?
Dude, this is insane. This sounds like a blueprint for the way that they're trying to create like the Neuralink and the way they say it's going to work with where we're going to be able to communicate with each other without using speech.
Yep.
Yeah. And it created a fascination with, in me. It's like, have you ever known something that there's no way you should have known it? Like you never learned it, but it's just there in your head.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna ask. Bill for sure has experienced that, but I've heard a lot of people who have said that they've had these experiences and they come back knowing things that they shouldn't know, that they didn't know
Hmm.
before, there's no way of knowing other than that experience.
Yeah. And it kind of connects into what people describe as the Akashic records.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
um, and what I think it is, or what I grew to think it is, and even began to practice it in my life is it from the day you're born, the day you're called into existence, you already have access to all information, all knowledge,
Mhm.
right? But you can't interpret or decode reality unless you take the responsibility to amass knowledge, expand vocabulary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I wasn't exposed to religion as a child, but I studied religions as I got older, and I was just blown away by what a lot of these scriptures said. Like even in the Bible, it says, you know, to um, to pray for knowledge, but for all of your receiving, also pray for wisdom and understand it.
Yeah.
And that plays right into that entire concept of the telepathic communication, the Akashic records. That you already have the potential to know and access everything you need to know and access, right?
You just got to figure
Um,
out how.
but if you
Mm-hmm.
it's like if somebody walks up to you, start speaking Russian, right? And you don't speak Russian, you're not going to understand a damn word they said.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're like, I want to know what that guy's talking about, so you take a class on Russian, right? You'll start
Yes.
picking up little bits of words, and then you'll grow into fluency, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you'll still encounter somebody from, backwoods Siberia or something that's going to pop off in a dialect or use slang, and you still won't know, right?
That makes total sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good.
So the
analogy.
only so the only way you'll ever know everything is to know everything, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Which is impossible.
Yeah.
But I feel like, we're already pre-programmed with a certain set of, I don't know if it's knowledge or instincts to be able to pick this up easier,
Yeah.
Yeah. And with what I learned through them is their purpose here is, they're not harvesting genetic material, they're not eating humans, right?
Mhm.
They're at least the group of Greys that I was encountering, right? They had a preoccupation with studying the soul, right? Particularly the migration of soul across worlds, across lifetimes, across
Mhm.
vessels, right? Um,
Wow.
so they have these souls that they have been tracing for thousands or tens of thousands of years, and whenever the previous vessel dies, they go and find the body that soul is now inhabiting.
Wow.
Kind of like the Buddhists with the Dalai Lama, right? When the Dalai Lama dies, right, they go looking for the reincarnation,
Yeah.
and that's what they do with the souls that they're tracking,
Hmm.
because they don't understand the nature of the soul any more than we do. They do, they believe in a creator God the same as we do, right? And that they believe that all of the beings, all the races in the entire universe were created by the same creator race, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
So
that's
they're
crazy, man. You would think that they would have like some sort of higher enlightenment to have this amount of knowledge and telepathy and everything.
Yeah, but can
they
anything
Yeah.
they have
ever understand what created them? It's always going
Yeah.
to be
Yes.
just out of your knowledge. I feel.
Mm-hmm.
right, and it's why we can't understand, the aliens. We don't understand them any more than they understand the beings above them, right?
Yeah.
And that's the structure of reality, all of the realities, which is something else they tried to explain. But it took me a long time to really, unpack and learn. To them, there is no past, present, future. There are no other dimensions. Everything exists all at once, all at the same time.
Yep.
So the past is happening now, the future is happening now, the now is happening now. The other dimensions all exist simultaneously in the same place and time.
Wow.
Why do they have that? Why do they have that privilege and we don't?
Well, they're from a different dimension, and like the dimensions aren't like little rooms next to each other. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a good way of really looking at it is, you know, like say there's the three dimensions we're aware of. Time is not a dimension. You know,
Yeah.
that's
I agree.
that's just something
Construct.
that
Yeah.
it's something
Mhm.
mathematicians invented. Time is a measurement,
Yeah.
right? Like
Right,
feet and
yep.
inches.
Mhm.
But with mathematics, calling time the fourth dimension is a good way of filling in the blanks in the mathematical equations. But time is not a dimension, right? So if you're, say, a one-dimensional being, a first-dimensional being, you're not going to perceive anything, nothing. If you are a second-dimension being, you will perceive everything in one dimension.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a third-dimensional being, which is what we are, you perceive everything in two dimensions. So when you look out at the world, you're seeing everything no different than a photograph, but
Yeah.
because of light, shadow, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah, and
your
the way our
brain is
brains perceive it, we know
yeah,
depth, but we don't really see it. We just know how to.
right.
Yeah.
So we're three-dimensional beings, but we're experiencing everything in 2D, and we're decoding a fraction of it in 3D. See, we can't see whatever dimension you're in, you cannot see the totality of that dimension, right? So, like a big thing on you've probably seen it, guys, on Twitter is this whole flat Earth versus globe,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
We're aware.
Uh-oh.
It's really probably more accurately something akin to both. It's like, because we're in the third dimension, trying to understand the third dimension, but we can only experience a fraction of it, like
Yeah.
what we're capable of decoding, through our senses.
Mm-hmm.
But see, a fourth dimensional being can see the third dimension.
Mm-hmm.
So these grays, they're from a higher dimension, say 4 or 5, somewhere higher, probably
Okay.
fourth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can see our world far more clearly than we can, right? Which is why they appear to come in from nowhere, leave from nowhere, like they just blink in, blink out.
Yeah.
But that's from our perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Can everyone see them though, or is it just who they choose to be able to see them?
I think everybody can. I think everybody's capable.
Mhm.
But I think it's a lot like the author Douglas Adams from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Mhm.
Right?
Absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
In one of his later books, I love that guy. I think he was much more of a genius than people give him credit
Yeah,
for.
and he just did it
For
through
sure.
in a humorous way, but
Yeah.
brilliant.
I'm not sure if it was So Long and Thanks for All the Fish or The Salmon of Doubt. It was one of
Mhm.
his later books where he's telling this story like these two guys, a human and alien, they're walking into this football stadium. Nobody's there, right? And the alien guy, he sees a UFO there, right? And the human doesn't see it. And the alien guy, he's like, no, it's there. And then the human suddenly sees it, but there's all these people walking by like it's not even there. So the guy says to the alien, he's like, how come all these people can't see that? And he says, well, because UFOs aren't UFOs, they're SEPs. And he's like,
What?
he's like, well, what's an SEP? And the alien says, somebody else's problem.
Excellent. That's
How
awesome.
did I not see that coming?
But there's so much truth in that statement, though.
Right.
Absolutely.
Do you think that time was implemented to keep us from being able to perceive this reality?
I think it's a construct our own minds created so we can understand our own existence without going insane.
Damn.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
probably accurate.
Well then.
Imagine
how
our
else-
world without time. Just show up whenever you want, man.
Yeah, I mean, how do we mark the passage? How do we mark the passage of our lives?
Yeah,
To
exactly.
create a frame of reference to our own existence. I mean, if we were aware of our own mortality, what things would matter and what things wouldn't.
Yeah, good point.
You know? Yeah.
What did you ever? So your dad, how did he know the Greys? What was the purpose of that?
I don't know. But I remember about a year later, Yeah, because I continue to have these experiences with encountering the Greys. Mostly it was I'd be taken through a portal. Sometimes we'd be onto a ship, but whether it was through a portal, um, and sometimes the portal was in the wall. Sometimes the portal was in the middle of the garden.
Yeah,
And
like you
sometimes
said,
there
they
was a
have a whole different reality. So the way you're perceiving it
yeah,
could possibly be totally different than it was. It's just that's the way your
yeah,
human brain perceived what was happening.
And
yeah.
now,
But
could you
we're both
call upon them,
I
or
did.
is okay?
Really?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Whenever I was feeling hurt, lonely, I would just have this emotion of like, hey guys, I need you. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this anymore. I need you. Um, I would always feel when they were coming. I know when they would be there, and I would go to look forward to it. Um, but to go back to what you were asking, whether they took me through a portal, whether they took me, up into a ship, or whether they took me mentally, because there is that like almost an out of body thing where they
Yeah.
they take you psychically.
Sure.
No matter what the form of the abduction was, you always end up in the same place.
Really?
So if they take you through a portal, you end up in that room. They take you up into the ship, you end up in that room, right?
Wow. Okay.
Which that's a whole other thing that's very confusing, like about the nature of reality.
Yeah.
It's almost like that ship is just a shell,
Mm-hmm.
Like a
and
waiting room or something that's as far as you're
yeah,
allowed to go, right?
yeah, like what's inside that ship is another dimension inside of it, and the physical vessel itself is just a shell that allows that dimension to
To
exist
emerge,
in this
right?
one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Emerge. Okay.
um, it's all very kind of Matrix level weirdness.
Yeah.
So
I
was
mean,
he? I mean,
reality is so.
was he like high level clearance government, or I mean, like?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
I never,
really?
That's crazy.
I never found out. But about a
He was
year
connected
after,
somehow. Clearly,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a conversation he was having with his new wife, my new stepmother, um, where they were in the living room, right, and I was in the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't allowed to watch TV, so I would like peek through the crack in the door, and try and sneak some TV, and I could hear them in there, discussing, um, my being taken. Like, so they were aware I was being taken,
Oh wow.
and he had said, um, if they ever find out that I let them find him, my ass is grass. Right.
Wow.
So
Whoa.
there's two different days in that sentence, right?
Yes. Very
If
good
if
point.
if if they ever find out that they found him, my ass is grass. So
Two
I understood that the
unknowns.
one, yeah, that the one they was clearly the Greys.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So
Mm-hmm.
who was the other they that he was worried was going to find out that the first they found me, right?
And why
And were
was he
taking me,
worried that they found you? What's
right? And
not I don't
and
mean in
why
a
was
mean way, but what's special about you that they're worried that
right?
he found you?
Yeah, it was
And
almost
what
like he,
they is which?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, it was
Do you
almost like
think
it was his job to
them?
hide me. Was that why we were moving around the
Oh,
world all the time? Was that why we
yeah.
were?
Okay. I was just gonna say now
Yeah.
it's starting to make a little more sense.
Yeah, because
Right, and
sometimes we move every 6 months. It's like this place, this place, this place.
Wow. Yeah. Sounds like running from something, but that also makes it sound like there's something unique about you, maybe your
You're,
genealogy, your bloodline,
yeah.
something that
I
they're
was just gonna
interested. I
say
mean,
that.
or like you said, you're reincarnated as someone who they
Mm-hmm.
had interest in before. So
Yeah,
that's why they have the interest in you.
yeah. And when I started going through puberty, I started having encounters with a different race.
Wow.
Oh.
But that was all psychically. That was all in my dreams. I'd find myself in the same place, like in this dream, and there was a woman there, human looking woman, but not quite human, just a little more human than human. Um, she was beautiful, blonde hair. We always met in the same location, And you know, very little was said. It was just like, being together.
Mm-hmm.
And but in one of the times we talked, I was just like, I don't want to be here anymore. I can't stand this place. Like, I just, I hated this world.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, she had told me that she and I were together for hundreds of years before I chose to come here.
Wow.
And I said, why would I choose to come here? Why would I choose to leave you? Why would I choose to come here? And she said, I came here to gather information. And that there were others like me in this world had the same purpose.
Wow.
That through our life experience, that information was being used to determine the fate of humanity.
No pressure. None at all.
Yeah, right.
I believe we all choose to come here, actually. I mean, obviously there's probably different classes and stuff like that, but I believe we're here, we chose to come here to experience this dimension, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And, later, when I started working for the Cabal, I learned really the truth of that.
I like how you just threw that in there.
Whoa!
When I started working for the Cabal, no big deal. Like you just ordered a salad or something.
Damn.
What came later, put everything into context. I'm just really speaking about what I was experiencing at the time I was experiencing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without throwing, too much in on top of it. But it talks about in the scriptures about like the writing angels, or that your deeds are being recorded in the book of life or the book of death.
Yes.
So like what you were
correct.
saying, like we're all part of this information gathering thing used to determine the fate of humanity.
Yeah.
That's what she told me. But that same information can be found in the scriptures, right?
Wow.
That everything you do is being, written down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, what I learned later was that the other races in the universe, are evaluating the threat level of humanity, because they all accept the fact that all the intelligent races, all the intelligent beings in the universe were created by the same creator race. Right?
Okay.
So we're technically all related. The same DNA that sparked the existence of what we call mankind, which is just Earth humans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That there are humans on other worlds throughout the universe, right? And that the grays are not one homogeneous species, right? It's not just one type of gray. There's as many types of grays as there are as many types of humans. Okay. Oh, there's probably more humans than them, but
and sorry to interrupt, when you're speaking about universe, are you speaking about like interdimensional or different planets, or what exactly are we talking about?
You kept saying
I'm talking about all of it. Yeah, I'm talking about like all of it. My word for that is paraverse. But when I'm speaking to others, I say universe as a ubiquitous thing.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, I call it the paraverse because it's not quite a multiverse, because multiverse really implies the separateness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's really all mashed together.
Consider that word stolen.
Parallel.
All the alternate realities, other dimensions, everything's existing in the same place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can get on board with paraverse.
For sure.
It's like a ball pushed into another ball, pushed into another ball. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Like when you open a golf ball, it's one strand after another after another, but it's all one thing. But that all of the races, all of the sentient, self-aware species were all created by the same origin, the same creator race, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we all share part of that genetic code. Right? And every race that was created by the creator race will eventually evolve into that level of being, right? So what we call God, we will eventually evolve into gods ourselves. And that this creator race had the power of manifestation almost instantly. Like they think it happens, right? They think food is there. They think planet is there. They think whatever they think happens, right? And that as species evolve from one dimension on up the line, right? That manifestation power grows. Like here on our level, we practice it a little bit, right? Like, with vision boards and all that. Like you call into existence the life you want through your will,
manifestation. Yeah.
right? Through your will. If you were a 4D being, your will would be more powerful. A 5D being, your will would be even more powerful. So imagine when you get up to like 100D being,
Yes.
right? Right. And then you think about the stories in the Bible about Jesus and the loaves of fishes, the water into wine, right? And what did he say to his disciples? All these things you have seen me do, you can do more and greater, right?
Uh-huh.
Right. So he said, you have the power. Like, you want to turn, 2 fish into 100 fish. You can, just as I can, right?
What, you just don't know how to?
But what holds us back? That story is also, allegorical with the doubting Thomas thing. It's your doubt, right? No matter how hard you believe, there's always a part of you that's going to be like, no, right? And it's that even a split second no that will keep you from manifesting it.
Yeah.
So where does evil come in?
The same thing. It says in the book of Isaiah, I am good and I am evil, for I created both of these. They're two sides of the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's why they're afraid of us. For there's something about us, right, where we are evolving up the ladder much faster than the other races did.
Really?
And they are worried. And I wouldn't say worried, but they know that there's a time coming in each phase of humanity where a day will come when we as a species will just make a sudden jump in evolution, right? And we will evolve into a species with the ability to manifest at a much more rapid rate.
Is this ascension?
Ascension, right? Some of the occultists call it like fourth time or fifth time.
Yeah, 5D. I see ascending into 5D.
Yes,
it's a really
exactly.
big thing right now. They're pushing. And
so if we jump, right? If we jump the curve and go from 3D to 5D, right? Go from third time or third dimension, up into fifth time or fifth dimension, right? And we are still a dangerous animalistic species. Their word that we will wreak havoc across the entire paraverse with that power.
I don't blame them.
Like, what would happen if, like, why don't the aliens come down and give us their knowledge and advanced technology? Because first thing we would do is blow the shit out of each other, right?
I completely agree.
Right. And after we were done hammering each other, we would, diaspora out throughout the entire cosmos and do the same thing to anything else we came across. Look at our movies and TV.
All violent.
It's all space war. Evil aliens, kill them, destroy their planet. Right? Even our superheroes like Superman, Batman, right?
All I know is we cannot let the Globies make this jump before we do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is those elitists, the elites, they know this information.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
And they will do anything to keep you from knowing it.
Yeah.
Right. This is their sacred truth. Everything I experience with the Greys is their sacred truth. Right? They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what you are, what you're capable of, or what the human race has the potential to be. Right. Because these elites, right, and it's basically at the very top, the round table. Their ultimate goal is they believe that it's not only their right to rule this planet and to rule us as a species, but it's their right to rule the entire universe and all other species. That this is narcissism gone completely to the next level with these people. And this is what the alien hoax is about, the UFO hoax, which is what's coming soon. This is part of the disclosures in Congress, right?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Is to try and prepare us through the hoax, right? To give them unlimited power to push technology forward to prepare for a real war with the real aliens that they believe that they can win and take the place of the Primarchs.
Whoa.
Hubris at its best.
Did you? So you worked for the government, right?
Not the government. I worked directly under the round table.
Yeah, in the private sector, it said that's a very broad term. So
Yeah. I began working for as an agent for the CIA. So if you work directly with the CIA, you're an officer. That means you get your paycheck from the CIA. You're part of the official record.
okay.
But it also puts the officers under disclosure, under accountability, right? So everything is done by proxy, right? Just like the FBI uses Antifa.
Yeah.
You know, you want to
Yes.
go start some shit in the city.
Right.
You can't have FBI agents doing that, right? Because they don't have deniability.
Yeah.
It's a bad look.
But they can give money to this charity, right? And then this charity can go and pay Antifa people to go, put bricks around the city. Okay, that's all they have to
That
do.
did happen, by the way, during the whole summer of whatever it was.
Summer of love.
Summer of love. There we go.
So you got one group that goes around putting out basically the ammunition, the pallets of bricks or rocks, right? And you've got another group that's funded to go out and agitate, and then you've got the useful idiots, which is how they view most of us,
Yeah.
who are willing to react emotionally through low intelligence to start throwing the bricks. Okay, the entire system works that way. You're not going to find information about UFOs or aliens through congressional hearings or through the Pentagon, Freedom of Information Acts, Congress. They don't know shit, and they don't know it on purpose.
Yeah.
Right?
Really?
Because it's all contracted out through proxies or agents, right?
Plausible deniability across the board.
So my case officer, who was a CIA officer, he worked for the CIA, right?
Mm-hmm.
He would fund money into one of my companies or one of my projects, or it started out that he would have me take over his management of a particular project. Like, they would give me a reference, I would take over his management or middle management, or I'd play the role of the finance guy, or whatever it was, and he would get me in, and we would advance the agenda along. An example was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first projects was they were trying to create this theoretical isotope called osmium-187,
What?
which is pulling an isotope out of the metal known as osmium, which is part of the platinum group. You've got platinum, iridium, ruthenium, rhodium, osmium is part of that. It was a theoretical isotope that would allow, when it's created into an alloy or mixed into an alloy, would theoretically superconduct at ambient temperatures.
Okay.
Right. The Russians were trying to create it. They'd actually successfully created a synthetic version by using ruthenium as a foreign parent body, but it was unstable. It eventually turned back into ruthenium and become worthless. But they had built a secret base just outside of Deer Lodge, Montana. And they had the government overseers, the Pentagon overseers. They had the scientists who were actually working on it. They had private sector money in there, and everybody was arguing about who's in charge. DoD people. And when I say DoD people, you can't get information about them because they're not actually officers. They didn't go to military academy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the the Surgeon General. I mean, she's not really an admiral, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You never went to the Naval Academy. Just like you got the job, you get the uniform.
Yeah.
So that's what these people are. It's the same people that run a lot of these so-called military projects. They're not actually military personnel at all.
It's all crap. It's all crap.
They just get this honorary title of colonel or major or admiral or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the DoD people, right? They're like, we're in charge, right? Then you've got the scientists. No, it's our scientific knowledge. We're in charge. And then you've got the private money people like, no, it's our money. We're in charge. So the thing was going nowhere.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Glenn, my case officer, he said, would you be willing to take charge of this project? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I went up there, took over the base, and at the very first meeting I had with them, they had them all gathered in the room. They're all in there arguing. And I walked in, slammed that door shut, and I was like, shut the F up. Right? I wired her up. I was like, this all ends right now. None of you are in charge. I am.
Nice.
Right?
And hell's coming with me.
Yeah. So within 9 months, just keeping them quiet. Just do your job, right? I'm not here for your childish crap. Just do your job, right? Within 9 months of being there, we produced the first stable gram of osmium-187 isotope. We continued producing, and we delivered the product, officially to the military.
So how did you
and that
make
was
that
like
happen? Just go in there and start splitting heads, or just like how'd you
Yeah,
turn it around
yeah,
so
when there's
quickly?
when there's no time for squabbling,
Yeah,
right? You take
Mhm.
you take that away. You take away all the drama,
yeah,
right? And when everybody's actually focused on work, the work gets done.
yeah. I agree.
When they're all squabbling about things that don't matter, it just goes day after day after day. I call it the Monday, Wednesday, Friday syndrome. Like, so on Monday we'll have it by Wednesday. On Wednesday it's Friday. On Friday it's Monday, and it just goes on like this for years, right? If you let them.
Mhm.
Um, that's why these projects, so many of them don't get completed, is because they just stay in this Monday, Wednesday, Friday BS for years, right? Until the money runs out, people lose interest. Um, I wasn't going to let that happen because I didn't get paid unless the project succeeded, and I
Yeah.
needed the money,
Mhm.
right? I got a
Right.
family to feed and kids to raise. My kids are in private Christian academy. Like, I can't let you guys screw around. This is going to happen,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Or I will, throw you topside, and I'll get somebody in here who will make it happen. You know. So we got that first batch of product made, and then I found out what it was for.
That's what I was
That
just
was
gonna
gonna be
ask.
that was gonna be my question right there. I'm like,
Right.
so where do we go now?
So that Osmium 187 was destined for a little place we all know and love called Area 51. We call it Homey Airport, right?
Yeah.
It was also known as Dreamland or Nowhere, but we called it Homey. So our product was shipped off to Homey to be used in research for space-based electronics and armor systems, right? And it was through that research that we now have something else that is just now coming into the public eye, which is called directed energy weapons.
Mm-hmm.
No, those are fake. Come on.
Yeah.
They
It's
they're
real.
both fake and real,
Yeah.
right? The technology to create them. See what the Osmium 187 allowed us to do was create the computer control systems that would react fast enough in and superconduct in any temperature, right?
Wow.
So we got and it was kind of the Osmium 187 was where it started. When the Pentium chip first came out, that was what allowed us to go to the next step, right?
Wow.
Remember, you guys are old enough to remember when the Pentium came out. That
Yeah,
was a big deal,
definitely. Every
Oh, it
every
was
day
definitely a
it was
big
on
deal.
TV.
Yeah.
The Pentium processor.
because that was a big jump.
Yeah.
In order to get, in order for us to build actual UFOs, we need to make the next jump, which is into quantum chips, which we're not there yet.
Now, do you think these jumps come from outside, or do you think these are actually humans coming up with these jumps in these
Well,
crazy quick advances that we see that things go from 0 to 60 almost overnight, it seems like sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Great question.
yeah. When you catch a break, things will happen that way.
Mhm.
And they have to answer the question. Yes, they have recovered alien craft.
Yeah.
Most of them are archaeological, right? Really
Okay.
old.
Yeah.
And what this goes back to is, like I said, that with the Greys, they're not a homogeneous race, and they're within all the different factions. They can be broken down into two main factions, right? One side is the Primarchs, which we call the good Greys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the other side is the Fallen, right? The bad Greys. Okay. The bad Greys are where all of our legends of demons, werewolves, vampires come from. The Fallen.
So like the Nephilim?
Yeah, like I've heard them referred to as fallen angels and all that. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the Fallen. That's the
Okay.
Fallen Greys. Right?
Okay.
When the split happened within basically their race, right? The Fallen were separated from the source of their technology, the source of their power, basically.
Okay.
Um, it doesn't mean they lost the knowledge. So they have been giving knowledge to mankind for thousands of years, helping us progress our technology along with the eventual hopes that we will replicate the technology they lost. Right? So they've guided our hand not only in finding archaeological, craft, which were their craft from hundreds or thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah.
Since they can't repair or replace their technology, it burns out, it crashes, it becomes defunct, useless.
Yeah.
But they can give us the starting tools and the starting knowledge with which to start replicating and reproducing the technology they lost. Right?
This is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
What I've
it is.
always thought is like, how does the human brain actually, start to conceptualize something such as a computer or a cell phone? Did they just start soldering wires together and then all of a sudden, we figured it out? So you're saying,
some of it is stuff that we came up with on our own. Some of it is stuff that we've been trying to reverse engineer, for decades, and some of it even hundreds of years.
Wow.
It was where the first knowledge of electricity even came from, right? But because their technology, remember, they're from a different dimension, a higher dimension.
Yeah.
Right? That we couldn't even begin to understand much of their technology, right? Until we were advanced to the point where we understood advanced chemistry, advanced mathematics, things like nanotechnology.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Ferrofluid technology, like the way the base level construction of their craft is based on almost ferrofluid technology, nanotechnology, where the raw materials are programmed in their raw state, and then when a certain frequency field is applied, then that substance then takes on its structure. Right?
Wow.
Remember the story about what is it, Roswell, and that some of the material they found was like a metal, and when they would crumple it up and then they would, let it go, it would resume its shape.
Yeah, go back to its original form. Yep.
Yes.
Like a foil?
That's because it's nano-assembled in its basic chemical state. So as a field is applied to it, it turns from a liquid into a gas into a solid.
Yeah.
Right. But it's a predetermined state. So they can basically design an entire ship, right? In its chemical components, and when the field is applied to it, that chemical those components will then unpack themselves and build a structure. Right? And it's almost like we would call it like organic technology.
Yeah. I feel like they leak this stuff out in movies too, like just a little bit at a time. They'll show it, letting us know that it exists, just making it seem like it doesn't.
Right, that's exactly it. Is to make reality appear like fiction, right? And to mix it up so much that you can't tell the difference between that shit and pepper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just imagine if this technology, I'm not going to elaborate on this any further, but imagine if it somehow were able to get inside of the human body. What things could happen.
Yeah, and you see that's something else that the elites understand. The round table, they understand is the nature of energy is a very key element to this, and it's something we're having a hard time understanding. This is one of the purposes of CERN, right?
Yeah. I was just gonna say that.
which is the interconnectedness of all things. Which, strangely, that brings us right back to Douglas Adams again, back to him again. If you've ever read Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
No.
Yeah, you should check that out. It's
okay.
In fact, I think there's even a show on. They made it like 2 seasons out of it.
I'm gonna write that down real quick. Can you repeat that for us, for everyone?
Yeah, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency.
Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Got it.
Anyway, the main theme to that is the interconnectedness of all things. So this holistic detective, he solves crimes simply by just bumbling his way through the world, and he will eventually come up with a solution just by going through the normal course, right?
Yeah.
Leaf in the stream of creation, right? But there is a truth to that, the interconnectedness of all things. One of the primary reasons for CERN was to conduct one single experiment, which led to, a deeper understanding of how this works.
Mm-hmm.
What they did was they took a photon and they split it in half, right? And they fired half of it one way, half of it the other. And as it came around, one half of it struck a target, the other half didn't. Whatever happened to the one that hit the target, right, also happened to the one that didn't.
Strange.
Right. So that was the beginning of the proof that once energy is connected, it's always connected. And since all mass is energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The mass is just another form of energy, right? And that every single part of what we experience, even your own body, right? All the molecules that make up your body once existed in the heart of a star, right? So every part of the energy that makes up you is connected to the energy of a larger whole, right? You are not separate from the universe. And this is why we have such a confusion over, is this reality even real? Is this a simulation?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's right back to what the Greys told me in the very beginning, that everything is in the same place at the same time. Right?
Okay.
The
All
concept,
simultaneously existing all at
yeah,
once.
the
And what
concept of
is it?
oneness is so much bigger than we know.
And what is it that you consider to be a star?
Just the same thing as everybody else, like suns, nebulas,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
all the energy that makes up, our concept of this reality. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're not separate from each other. We're not separate from the other cosmic bodies, and we're not separate from the other races, right? And because that energy is not separate, and this is another thing that is a big deal for the other races, is thoughts are also energy, right? So the more negative and violent we are as a species, we're not just affecting ourselves, right? We're affecting the rest of the paraverse as a whole,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the worse we get, the worse we make it for everybody else, right? And if you just look at the way we are on Earth, every other living being on this planet, including plants, exists at our sufferance. Like every other life form on this world suffers because of our existence,
Oh, absolutely.
right? But it's not limited to just here, right? We make the rest of the paraverse suffer too. We make the whole paraverse a little bit of a worse place to be.
Yeah, if everything's
And so you're
connected, it makes sense to me.
And what they hope
100%.
for us, which is why they've, allowed knowledge to come to us through, our sages and prophets and poets and writers through, tens of thousands of years, over iterations of mankind after iteration. We're already in the fifth iteration of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
We've risen up and been wiped out, called down before, right?
Absolutely.
And every time they restart us, right, they hope that we're going to evolve beyond this animalistic point, right? But when we start reaching the point where that jump in evolution is going to happen, they have to put a stop to it because we still are not getting there.
We're too dangerous.
When you said restart, you're talking about like a reset, like
Yeah,
Like
the
do you-
melting,
Yeah,
so,
do you-
The
like
biblical floods.
the mud
Like-
floods, all that that's legit. And
like wipe us out down to a few thousand survivors and restart the human race again.
Yeah, so do you believe in or know anything about like the Tartaria and stuff like that, like old world stuff, and then it got wiped out, or are you just talking?
Oh yeah. No, I'm talking about just where the human population is culled down to a very small number.
Yeah.
Right. And those survivors, the remaining core of humanity, is then educated and restarts life on this planet. We start breeding again. So like I think what you're talking about, like the knowledge of the ancients, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Those were like the first generations of the restart, right? But every subsequent generation, we get dumber and dumber and dumber.
Oh,
Mhm.
that fits in
Mm.
exactly with what I believe.
It's
We may have different
instead of the
names for
opposite.
it, but it's exactly what I believe.
And it's a lot of it's because of the ignorance that's of stuff that's hidden from us, right? Like the controllers and all that.
It's the
They
greed, right?
they lower our vibrations and all that, and
Yeah,
so
you
okay,
know,
yeah, it's not like
if
we
I,
choose to be dumber, right? Like,
if I possess knowledge, right,
Mhm.
um, and I'm one of these greedy, elites, right, I'm gonna pass the knowledge on to my sons.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Right.
make sure your sons never have access to it, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Because it's the knowledge that is the power. It's the knowledge that is wealth. Right?
So
Um,
essentially, you're saying like the bloodline of the elites was passed down from these 1,000 followers or survivors of the reset.
yeah, and it's probably around 100,000 or so. 100, 200,000.
Yeah, that's
Um,
not much when you're talking about the whole world, you know.
right. When you're talking about billions of people.
Yeah.
So is the
Um,
cabal still around or what?
oh, they're still around. And the cabal's one half of it. The Illuminati's the other half. See, they're two sides of the
That's
same
what I've
coin.
always thought. It seems like it's like two rival mobs or gangs going at each other, and that's why part of the reason things are so crazy, because even evil isn't unified; it's split up
Yeah,
too.
Right.
yeah, and they're not rivals by any stretch. Right.
Okay.
No.
You see, at the very top, you have the round table, like
Mhm.
akin to like the high table in the John Wick movies, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. It's not the high table; it's the round table.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, there are 13 families which rule the round table. Okay. The number one family, there is a king of this world. Okay. There is one guy that's in charge, one family that's in charge. Right. Below the table, right, you have the Illuminati on one side, you have the Cabal on the other side. Now they have the world split into two parts. The Illuminati, right? They are the banking, um, the industrial leaders, right? What we would call government leaders, but not government as we understand, as the public understands government, right?
Yeah.
There's
Like
a
a
government
higher
above,
government.
yeah, like Joe Biden, the senators, politicians, right? They are there to sell us the agenda,
Mhm.
so
Right.
that we do the physical, mental, and emotional work of that agenda. Okay.
Mhm. Makes sense.
The cabal on the other side is there to make sure that we do the mental, physical, spiritual, emotional work of the agenda, right?
Yeah.
So like, they need to grow the Illuminati needs to grow the population so that we make more money, so that we pay more taxes or tithe or whatever it is we pay into the system, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that they keep that ball rolling. So on the other side, right, so you'll have like the Bilderberg Group, the Vatican,
Mhm.
okay, two sides, right? So the cabal, they will run things, spiritually, social engineering, healthcare systems, the whole infrastructure of life, right, that
Mhm.
supports the infrastructure of industry, right? Two sides. So I
Mhm.
worked over on the cabal side, right, which was the social engineering, depopulation projects,
Oh.
think tanks. Um,
But before we
so
go any further, I just have one question. It's sort of off subject. Do you know who's responsible for the Georgia Guidestones?
I do actually,
I knew it. I fucking knew it. All right.
and
You don't
can't
have to
remember the
tell us
guy's
right
name.
now, but I would like to hear for sure.
No, he was a doctor. He was also an environmentalist guy. I can't remember his name for the life of me. Um, and he wasn't really,
Oh, he wasn't really
He was just
tied
like
in
a
with them.
fan of it.
yeah, he wasn't really any kind of a bigwig or anything like that.
Right.
He's like,
You
look at
know,
me. I built these things. Can I get in the club now?
yeah, I mean, he wrote several papers. I wish I could remember his name.
If it
When
comes
I
to
do
you,
remember it,
just
I'll,
email me later or whatever, and we'll put it up with it.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, it was Dr. something or other. Anyway, he was one of those environmentalists, right? That believes that, you've got to make your own BS prophecies come true,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like these global warming activists that are starting forest fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really not happening the way we said, so we need to make it happen. We got to make them believe, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what the Georgia Guidestones were. I don't know who the guy was that blew them up or why.
Yeah. I'm
He's
more interested.
awesome,
I'm
is
more
what he is.
interested in who built them than who blew them up. Honestly.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Ted Turner.
No, it wasn't Ted Turner. No. It was this doctor, and a few of his friends raised some money and decided to be really, cool to put there because they believed, right? And that's the thing with these lower level people is they really believe this BS that they're being fed from the top, right?
Mhm.
The world's going to end in 10 years. Dude, I've been hearing that crap my entire life.
Yeah, exactly.
So the 33rd degree Mason thing, is that?
I was just gonna ask about the Masons.
Because he had to have been at least a 33rd, right? Like to know about the 500,000, keep the population at 500,000. Isn't it all? Is it not in all the Illuminati manifesto and all that, or
That's just a
it's all crap?
A made up number that they've gravitated to.
Oh,
the population numbers aren't that specific.
right.
Like the directive we're under now, right, which was put into effect back in the 1970s, was for the U.S. and the UK to reduce their population numbers by 75% by 2025. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a directive that was put into place, right? So that 75% can represent a range of numbers. Okay, and just like the final culling of humanity will be a range of numbers, not a specific, not 500,000, right?
Yeah.
Or 500 million or whatever that thing said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
500 million. I probably made a mistake on that.
Yeah, and to keep it there for all eternity, that's not the way it works, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You have to grow the population up to the point where it serves the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the population reaches a point where it becomes a detriment to the table, you cull it back. You bring it up, you cull it back. It all fits the purpose, right? They look at us like livestock, like a resource to be managed.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't hide that
For now.
the way they feel about you, because when you go to work at a company, right, and you apply or you have a problem at work, what department do you go to?
HR.
Which stands for Human Resources.
Human Resources. Yep.
They're telling you what you are, pal. Right?
Yeah.
No.
You are a resource to be managed. They need you to consume in certain patterns in order to make their whole agenda work, right?
That makes sense too, because right now I feel like the way they're running it is they don't care what we think at all, and they have a goal that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and it's so nefarious. I mean, it's not like they don't see themselves as evil, and it's really not evil in and of itself, right? It's the way they're raised, which
Right.
these families have been insulated, for hundreds of years to be separate from the rest of us. And they are now genetically hardwired to think that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really think of us as people at all. Right. That's why, fluoride, right? Fluoride is a substance so poisonous that the EPA does not provide any way to dispose of it. You can't put it in the ground. You can't store it in barrels. You can't dump it in the water. There's no legal way to get rid of it, except for one.
In your gums.
That's to get you to eat it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's too poisonous to dump it in the ground, but it's perfectly okay to feed it to people. Right?
Unbelievable.
And they get rid of a lot of toxic waste by just calling it food.
Yeah.
And we eat it.
Yeah.
Right? And,
yes, we do.
And we die and we have kids. It's also why suicide is illegal, right? They don't want you killing yourself because they've already factored what your life is worth over your expectancy. They have actuaries that when you're born, right? They say, hey, okay, so Ted's going to live for, according to his genetics, he's going to live for 80 years. He's going to produce this much money. He's going to pay this much in taxes, consume this much in product, right?
Yeah.
But if you kill yourself when you're 40, right, then you're screwing them out of 40 years,
Yeah.
right? And that's how they look at it. Like
so
you're
what you're
screwing them
saying
over.
is, if you
Mhm.
want to stick it to the man, you need to kill
Yeah.
yourself.
There's a less harsh way of doing that.
I'm sure there
no,
is.
I'm kidding. I kid.
You want
I,
to?
I have a
If we
question,
wanna,
man. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, if we want to really break the cycle, the elites aren't as strong as they like to make us think they are.
Which
we
kind
wanted
of leads in there. Yeah, go ahead.
If we wanted to break this whole control system, which wouldn't totally break it, but it would make them reset everything,
Mm-hmm.
is if we could, and that's what the Greys used to say to me all the time, like, just stop. Just stop. Humanity needs to just stop.
Yeah.
If everybody in the world, right, or even if everybody in this country didn't go to work, didn't drive anywhere, didn't buy anything, didn't use any water, any electricity, nothing, and I mean literally use nothing
Yeah.
for 3 days to 5 days, the financial impact that the elites would experience would be so severe that they would suspend all of their plans and they would have to start over with all new models.
They're
right?
banking on the fact that they know we can't come together because they try to divide us in every single way possible.
Yeah, gas is too expensive. Okay, if nobody in this country, not one single truck rolled, nobody drove their car,
Mhm.
you didn't use any electricity, right? Which electricity is, pushed by fossil fuels,
Yeah.
right? No planes, nothing. Nothing that burned fuel moved for 3 days. Prices would fucking plummet,
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
right?
Why is money so important to them beyond just being a control mechanism?
That's all. Control.
That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we allowed to know now?
Because there's nothing you can or will do about it.
Oh, that was rough.
That's
I mean,
harsh
because
truth.
10 years ago, right? Like, yeah, we all heard about it, and it was Illuminati. You know what I mean? And it was like almost like a joke, but not really. Like you knew there was controllers, higher ups and whatnot.
Yeah, but you laughed it off because you didn't know what else to do. So
right, and
Yeah.
but now there's all this wealth of information. The awakening, I guess, right? We could safely say that is. That's what this is, what we're doing right now, right? You're allowed to talk to us about all this stuff and why, like, are they just allowing it because they don't care anymore, or
because they think we won't do
are they
shit
getting
about
ready
it.
to do I was gonna say, or are they getting ready to do the reset like you talking about, so they're like, yeah, let them all
it's very it's very, very close.
Yeah.
right.
And that's why they can come out with their cockiness and doing whatever they want, because they know they can pull the trigger on that at any point.
They think, right? They think that the noose is fully and securely around our necks and that we can't slip out. That's what they think.
Yeah.
Right? They have always underestimated humanity, and I warned them my entire career that you can't rely on this information. You think you know what's going to happen, but you don't know what's really going to happen until you pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Right? It's like everybody's got a plan until you get hit. Right? Like there are so many elements to this, and no one thing has one purpose, right? Everything is multi-purposed with these guys. Everything, right? Like when COVID came out, it caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting coronavirus to be used as a bioweapon. I thought it was going to be smallpox.
Yeah.
Honestly, I did not expect them to roll out with a low grades weapons test, which is known as COVID-19. I thought they were going to come out and just, hit us completely, right, with the first wave.
Yeah.
But when they came out with COVID, right, I was like, okay, well, this is weird. But it was when I saw the test, I was like, okay, now I know what this is, right?
DNA collection?
Because it is. Because coronavirus is DNA targetable, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I've said to everybody I've known, Africa is the play, right? It's not that they want to get rid of mankind. See, the elites don't want to wipe out mankind, right? The other races in the Paraverse, they're going to cull us back. They're the ones who will do the culling, right? Unless the cabal, the Illuminati, the Round Table, they cull our numbers. They keep gradually scaling us back so that they can put off the day of confrontation. right? What religion calls the Battle of Armageddon,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So by culling us a little bit at a time, throughout generations, they're postponing that. Um, the big play is Africa. There's resources there that did not exist in Europe, that did not exist in the Americas. But there's a problem with Africa, and that's the people who live there, right? So with the DNA capability of the coronavirus, right, which was first experimented on, like I said, the first test was 1975. That was the first weapons grade test of coronavirus. They put a group of people they infected a group of people in London, right? Put them on a plane, sent them to New York just to see how fast the virus would spread. Prior to that, you never really heard anybody talking about having a chest cold, right?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, the chest cold was the very first weaponization of coronavirus, right? The second big weaponization of it was called SARS.
Yeah.
Right? They experimented with the genetic targeting capability of coronavirus by programming it to primarily affect Middle Eastern people, right? Which is where we got MERS from. MERS is just SARS designed to target Arabs, right?
Oh.
Okay, so
Wait a second. So you're telling me that all this didn't start from some dude eating bat soup in China?
no, it didn't. Sorry, my dog's chewing on something.
That's all good.
So as part of this plan was, little companies, to get you interested in your ancestry. So I got Ancestry.com, 23andMe.
My mom did that. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, no,
Yeah.
please.
And what about the COVID or the testing for the virus too?
That was the final. That was why they pushed so hard. Get tested, everybody get tested,
Yeah.
right? Was to fill in the missing pieces of for those people who did not voluntarily go and submit their DNA, or who were not prisoners and had their DNA forcibly taken.
Crap.
Yeah.
It was part of the Bureau of Prisons policy, the Federal Bureau of Prisons, to where no inmate could be released from prison unless he gave up a sample of his
course
DNA.
not.
Right?
Mhm.
Right.
So even though if they couldn't take it, right, they couldn't take it by force,
They
but they
can't.
could take it by extortion. Like, well, we can't, even though your sentence is complete, we can't let you go unless you give us a sample.
Mhm.
That's how they always do it. They make you give in, because I doubt
Right.
anybody fights that. They just go, hell yeah, I want to get out. Here you go.
I'm out.
Right.
Because they don't
So
they can't take away our free will. At least that's what I believe.
no, but they can't, but they can get you to give it up through fear or through manipulation.
Absolutely. Coercion in any way. But
So
can't
the
take
low
it.
grade, yeah. So the COVID-19 was just one. It was a vector test to see how far it would spread, during what patterns, right, and where they needed to perfect their genetic targeting. Then through the testing, they were able to, fill out the remaining genetic profile of all the peoples in the world.
Okay.
This has the multi-purpose, right? Not only does it create a DNA or genetic profile for all the groups that they may or will target, right? There are groups that they are going to target with the next round, and groups that they may target with the next round, and groups that they might target if they don't behave, right? But also it allows them to program the virus to where their own bloodlines are whitelisted,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So their families, their sons and daughters, their relatives can walk through a plague-filled world with no fear of ever catching the disease, right? If they want to get rid of an entire race, right, they can program the virus to wipe out that entire race. And I'm not going to say who, but there is a race that is targeted for extermination.
Well, thanks for not saying who. So now
Yeah.
we won't know. So we don't have to live in fear.
You can figure it out.
Yeah.
And which is why there's a psychological operations going on, since, concurrent to the DNA collection was to let certain groups of people just completely ravage our society to the point where the rest of us, the rest of the world, won't complain a whole lot when they are exterminated.
Wow.
Right? This is the depths of the evil that we're dealing with.
And that's a
right?
big problem, is that a lot of people think because they can't think of something that evil that no one can, and that's not true. Not at all.
These people, they don't see it as evil. They see it as their right to control and manipulate.
Yeah.
Their
But
duty, right?
yeah, but to those of us who do live a moral existence and who do care about the condition of our mortal soul, this agenda is sickening on massive levels, right? And this is why we need to, all of us, right, need to stop, these behavior patterns. To say that one group has the right to, just destroy cities, civilizations, and peoples because they've been told that because of their victim status, they're entitled to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because by them buying into that BS, right, they're
They're enabling them.
It's making it possible for everybody else to hate them,
Yeah.
right? So the elites get to destroy the group that they want to destroy, and then they get everybody else's approval to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
They also create social conditions to where they make things bad enough, we will beg them to come and save us. Like, if you just give us total power, we can fix this
Yeah,
situation we
exactly.
caused.
Yep.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Right.
And then, like you said earlier, they put it into fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, look at the Star Wars movies, right? What did Palpatine do when he was just the senator or chancellor, whatever the hell he was, right? He conducted this whole backhanded operation to make everything so crappy that when he was like, if you give me these emergency powers, I promise I'll lay them down when the
Right.
crisis is over. And then he's like, up yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
Um,
familiar.
That's what they're
Mhm.
building to, right? When our country is just take America for example, when our country is completely demoralized, and that is the phase we're in. It's called demoralization, and it's a step
Mhm.
before control, right?
Absolutely, yes.
You can't get a job because you're a certain race. You can't protect yourself from this. You don't have the right to decide what's best for your children. Um, there's nothing about your life that's certain or predictable or safe. You just exist in a constant state of anxiety, fear, and then you're spoon-fed misery and crap day after day.
Mm-hmm.
And all they show, you know, they don't show the reality on TV, right?
Right.
What they show is racial violence, right? To where
Yeah.
when you go out to the park, right, and you see a member of another race, you're like, oh God, but that's
Mhm.
not the way it is. That is not the reality, and it never has
Mhm.
been, right? Throughout all of our existence, there's been bad people, there's been good people, right? But when they start manipulating you psychologically to see an entire group is all bad, right? Then they create that separation,
Yeah.
and it also amplifies everything. So through what they're calling optics, right? They're trying to convince us that the world is a much worse place than it really is.
Mhm.
Through doing that, we are actually acting accordingly and making it a worse place,
Yep.
right?
Right.
And when the world is filled with violence and plague and poverty, we will say, please, Mr. Politician, please take total power over me. I will live in a box and eat bugs. Just protect me from these evil people and make sure I don't get it.
Yes.
Right? We will beg for our own enslavement, right?
And that
So,
just shows the power of the media and how why I always say it's so important to take a step back and take a look at the world through the lens of your own eyes, because that's why we were given them.
Yeah, you know what?
And
Yeah.
Turn off the TV and realize
Turn
that
off the
life
damn
is
TV.
beautiful around you.
Yeah,
Don't
man.
listen to how horrible it is that they're telling you. It's
yeah.
not.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why when I said earlier that their plans always backfire.
Yeah.
Remember during the early stages of the COVID lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
the real reason they started lifting the lockdowns, they would have made that permanent if they could have got away with it. But there was something that happened in the world during the initial COVID lockdown that they saw, but the rest of us didn't, is we stopped caring about their agenda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. We started going for walks in our neighborhood. People started sitting in their front lawns because they couldn't go anywhere, right? So they moved from the backyard to the front yard just so we could see each other and say hi to each
some
other,
sort of
right?
interaction. Yeah.
And those lockdowns actually started bringing us together. So they were like, "Oh no, we can't have that. We need to scrap that, and
Yeah.
we need to come up with a better formula for lockdowns."
Yeah. Let them
So
back out there, but tell them they can't come within 6 feet and get them to attack people who are wearing masks or not wearing masks.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the masks, right?
Ugh.
We couldn't see each other smile. So
Ugh.
so when you smile at somebody, they can't see it, and you can't see if they're smiling back.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It
That
does.
was-
So much of
There's
our-
a chemical reaction in your body when you see someone smile at you.
Mhm. That
And-
energy transfer.
Yeah, and also I believe breathing is what life is all about. We're taking in everything, and they want to restrict that. They want you
Yeah.
muzzled.
And my youngest son was born during the lockdown, and I really think that affected how quickly he was able to learn how to speak.
Yeah, you can't see
Was it-
mouth movements. You can't learn how to
Mhm.
do it. That's how you
yeah.
learn. You watch how they move their mouth to make sounds, and if you can't see
Yep.
that,
Mhm.
Yeah, and that whole nonverbal communication was taken away from us, and most of our
Yeah.
communication
Mhm.
is nonverbal, and we started seeing each other with suspicion,
Yeah.
um, but they realized that they didn't have full control over that, right? Because things were, were backfiring, and you see, and there's through that whole thing, there's a little lesson, right? That I really wished humanity would have, the rest of the human race would have picked up on, right?
Yeah.
Which is, if we don't play the game, all that goes away. Like it goes away really
Mhm.
quickly, like really quickly. Like they tell us that, that we're all racists, right? But we're not,
No.
right?
No,
Nope.
no, we're
But
not.
but we now start seeing each other as racists. Like,
Mhm.
oh, he's a racist. He's not a racist, dude. Like, this is normal behavior, and this is what we used to deal with. This is why humor is so important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We used to, we used to live in a society where everybody ripped on everybody else for everything, right?
No, I
Mm.
loved
Um,
it. I loved
Yep.
it. We
I was-
still live in that society.
Yes,
over
we do.
here.
Just so you know.
That's like when you lose your sense of humor, man, you pretty much have lost everything.
Yeah, you're done.
Right.
That's the point.
Absolutely.
Without music and,
and-
humor, life wouldn't be worth living. That's how I
Yeah,
feel.
I'm offended. I'm offended. No, dude, you're really not offended. You're just offended because you're told you're supposed to be offended. Are you really
exactly.
offended?
Yeah.
Like, no.
You're a robot.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People are being taught how to be victims and how to be offended at things that they're really not emotionally offended by. They're just mentally offended, but
Yeah.
not in their
Well, it's
hearts.
gotten to
they're
the
not.
point where people are afraid of who's even standing behind them while they say something, and
Yeah.
what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
And everyone's got video cameras now, so
Well,
Yeah,
I got.
like they
cancel
want-
culture.
I feel
Yeah,
lucky
they
that
want to.
I grew up with parents who kind of said whatever they thought, so that's not in me. Like, I don't think about that. I just say what I'm gonna say. It gets you in trouble sometimes, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have that mentality.
Yeah, hey, bring back bullying. Like
Yeah. Yes.
Hey,
It strengthens you.
it does. It does. It gives you
Builds
thick skin.
character.
What do
Yeah,
you
it's like-
think averted it? What do you think sparked that we're not going to play that game thing? There had to have been something, right?
during the COVID lockdown.
Yeah. I mean, there was obviously this movement going on behind the scenes. Is it legit?
Well,
I
think about it. Took away a big part of our lives that is unnecessary, and we started to see that part was unnecessary.
Mhm.
Like, we're conditioned. We have to, we have to go here. We have to do this. We have to, I have to get to Starbucks. I have to get to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. Everything becomes a have to, right?
That
And
time thing
really,
again.
you don't really have to do any of that stuff. Right. You know, you don't have to have a Starbucks. You don't have to have, you know, the banana bread. You know, none of these things are needs. It was a whole confusion over needs and wants,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we could no longer go out and spend our whole time running around, right?
Yeah, getting the
You just go in
frivolous
your
stuff.
kitchen. Just go in your kitchen, make a cup of coffee, sit on your porch, and you're like, you know what? This coffee's good enough, right?
Yeah.
This sandwich is good enough. Like, I don't have to go out to dinner. I don't have to go out on Friday night. I don't have to this, have to that. And it just slowed everything down. And then people kind of felt that was just like, you know, I've got more time to enjoy. It's no longer, you know, rushing home from work, fighting through traffic, you know, getting home already kind of pissed off, right? And then you've got your kids, you don't talk to your neighbors. Um, you know, you wake up, you rush through your day, you go to bed, you don't appreciate anything.
Yeah.
But
Right.
when that whole part of a chunk of your day was taken out, right? You could replace it with appreciation, with gratitude, you know, with quiet. You could now read the book you have, you know, you've been putting off reading, right?
Yeah.
As long as you weren't too worried about killing your grandma.
Yeah. Well, you know, like you know, Queen Victoria used to say, the poor are always with us. We're always going to have crazies. We're always going to have, you know, rotten people.
Yeah.
Right.
But the truth is they are a minority, right? They are the true
Mhm.
minority.
Yeah.
Right?
But they're just
honest.
louder than everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. And the media helps with that as well, obviously.
They get amplified by the people who want them to be amplified.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, how about just act like our parents did? You know, shut up or I'll give you something to cry about. Like,
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Bring it back. So I just want to say we are at an hour and 50 minutes. I would love to have you back for a second one if you would want to do it at some point. I know there's
sure.
a lot we haven't covered. I'm not saying we need to stop right now. I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah. I mean, we can get, you know,
I feel like there's so much more we could talk to you about.
yeah. I mean, we can get to, you know, the specific programs that, you know, um, the different, you know, social conditioning programs that led us to where we are today. We've just kind of been like, you know,
Yeah.
glossing over the top of it, which
Yeah.
really is the most important thing. It's the whole, you know, who shot John is like, you know, it's interesting,
Yeah.
but it's not what really matters, you know.
I think it was Bush Senior, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was
No,
involved, but
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
he
no,
doesn't
Bush,
remember where he was, which is insane to me.
yeah.
no, Bush Senior. That's who shot Reagan.
Oh.
You heard it
Spicy.
here.
Spicy.
I'm not a fan of the Bush fan, but yeah,
Neither am
Yeah,
I.
we need to-
yeah, Bush the first. I will say this on air. Bush the first. We used to call him Bushwhacker, right? That was his nickname. Bushwhacker Bush. Don't let your kids near Bushwhacker. Yeah. You wonder?
Holy
Wow.
shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Why did
Wow.
W and Jeb turn out so weird? Yeah, Daddy's little boys.
Yeah. Oh, doesn't
Mhm.
surprise me at
Wow.
all. Even that weird
Yeah.
ass interview where he's talking about his mom having the fetus in the jar and crap. Like, that's
Oh,
odd.
yeah,
I
dude.
don't care who you are. That's odd.
Yeah. These families are weird, right?
Yeah.
These elites are weird. Like, I don't know if I talked about it on Coast to Coast, but I did on you know, that the 22 part podcast I did with Connie.
Yeah.
Um, you know, like when I worked for the Cabal, when I worked for the elites, I used to have to go to their parties. It was quasi mandatory to go, and these people, they're disgusting on levels. Like, you know, did they get us hating each other? The people we really should be hating are these degenerate. Like, I can't even tell you how disgusting they
Yeah.
are. I won't go into it here, but
So if you've been at their parties,
so it's
you've seen some people there, huh?
oh yeah, I mean, it was one of those parties that was the real big eye opener for me, right? One of the Rockefellers was there, and he was at the table to my right. I wasn't. We were at our table, and then him and his friends were at their table, right?
Yeah.
But I'm sitting like maybe 4 feet from him, and he's drunk and he's loud, and I can hear everything he's saying. This is before 9/11, right? And he's saying, you know, joking. He's telling his friends about the history of the future, right? And he's like,
I like that.
and he's like, oh, And he's like, you're gonna see our guys going into caves looking for an enemy who ain't there, and then then we're gonna take down, we're gonna have a coup in Venezuela, and then blah blah, and then
Oh
we're gonna have
wow.
asteroid scare, and then he says, the end game is gonna be a staged alien invasion.
Oh,
And that's what really made me remember the conversation, was because the word staged.
here we
Yeah.
go. Yep.
I was like, staged as in hoaxed, or staged as in we would stage a military operation, with invasion forces, and you stage your follow-on forces and
Yeah.
your supply lines and all that. I didn't know what he meant. A few years go by, and then 9/11 happens. And not too long after that, we find ourselves in a little place in Afghanistan on the Pakistan border
Like,
called Tora Bora.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what were we doing in Tora Bora? We were going through a cave system looking for an enemy who wasn't there. And then
Yep.
it all came popping right back in my head.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Damn.
He was laughing. You're going to see our guys going into a cave system looking for an enemy who's, and here we are. And I'm like, dude, like, really? Like, this is really happening. And then I watched Venezuela go through a coup and fall. And then we started seeing the asteroid. Asteroids are going to hit Earth. And that's what I thought he meant by asteroid scare, was asteroids hitting Earth. No, that was not the true asteroid scare. The true asteroid scare is the one that's to come, right? What's the name of that Urabura or whatever its name is? That asteroid, the big,
the giant one or whatever.
That's now come back through like two or
the
three
Halley's
times.
Comet
that they're saying could be an alien ship, right?
Oh,
right?
Boy.
Oh, they're talking about Nibiru. Is that
no?
What
It's
is?
like it starts with an O, like Uraburo or Obamatron or something like that.
That'd be a good name.
Yeah, I'm
Obamatron.
pretty sure I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, it's always a near miss, right? But
yeah, Obamatron. That's Obamatron. He's the LGBTQ transformer. That's right.
Yes.
Sorry.
That was
Send hate
good.
mail too.
No.
No sorries here. Sorry is never necessary.
This is the most PG it's ever gonna be.
Yeah.
Oh, I can be much worse. Believe me, I got a mouth.
Go right ahead. No, we can't.
But I think that's a true asteroid scare, is this thing that the asteroids may be carrying aliens, and which also would lead into the final step of the alien hoax, which that could be a whole show in itself, what the true nature of the hoax is, right?
You familiar with Bluebeam?
Yeah, Project Bluebeam. That's one element of the hoax.
Okay.
There are several elements to it. One is going to be deep space imagery, Bluebeam, actual physical craft, and genetically modified beings, which are human sourced. But the fifth part to that, right? And we just saw the fifth, right? And we just saw that weapons test go down in Maui.
Yes, we did.
Damn.
But
wow.
see, it's not space based, and the reason it's not space based, because remember, I worked on the project that really made that technology possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is we can't store enough power. We can't get big enough batteries up there. Okay. So the directed energy weapons are actually coming from aircraft, from drones. Like the AC-130 Spectre gunships retrofitted.
Yep.
737 or larger aircraft, right? We can have the stored power, the battery systems, and the capacitors. You have to have capacitors, right, to store the power for peak discharge.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a big component of it. But there's two other ways of deploying the directed energy weapon. One is in small vehicles like vans, right? And they did report vans going around in Maui. But
Really?
there are directed energy weapons that are currently in every single city in America. Right?
5G
and it's
towers.
what caused 5G. Exactly. You got it.
Oh, great.
Well, I mean, I've got a laser pointer at home that I can just start stuff on fire just by pointing it at it. So I figured, on a grander scale, imagine what they'd be able to do with it.
But another type of directed energy weapon is microwave.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now you stick a fork in your microwave, what happens?
Not
A lot of
good.
fun.
Party.
So if you aim a microwave weapon at a house,
Hmm.
right, you're going to superheat. You're going to super activate all the wiring in the house. Those
Oh.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wires.
Oh.
right.
A lot of
You're
houses
gonna,
also have the like
Just fry it out.
aluminum
Why-
studs and stuff
Fire
now
it
too.
up.
So
exactly.
Mhm.
Why did the
Speaking of
aluminum?
aluminum, sorry to interrupt, but do you think that that has something to do with, we call them chemtrails? I'm sure you're familiar with it. And, they say it's spraying of the heavy metals into the atmosphere.
It's an aluminum talc. So aluminum's entering your body. It's also there's aluminum in your vaccines. There's aluminum in your deodorant, in your soap, your shampoo, your food.
yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
So this aluminum is in your body. So what happens when they hit you with a microwave weapon?
Yeah.
If you're just
Mm-hmm.
if you're just an organic piece of material, right? Yeah, you're going to experience, biological damage from
Yeah,
being hit
minor
with that.
amounts of iron in your blood, possibly, but nothing
Yeah.
like tons and tons of nanoparticles of aluminum.
Right. But
Mm.
so if you have, and that's exactly what it is. It's nanoparticle aluminum.
Yeah.
So
But
at this point, we
if
should
that's in your body, if that's in your body and you're hit with that microwave weapon, not only are you going to burn, but you're going to burn to a crisp.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every
you're
cell,
evaporate,
it's
yeah.
it's in your body.
Mm.
It's everywhere.
How
Mhm.
how many people in Maui were burned to a crisp?
Mm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Well, whatever
It's a
number
lot.
they're
I heard about
saying, I
that.
think it's a lie. I'm sure it's
Mhm.
way
Yeah, it is.
more than they're telling us.
They're
Right.
admitting
And
to about 1,000. It's probably closer to 2 or 3.
Yep. I think
and
so.
so
And
do you think it's
Wow.
possible to like detoxify these heavy metals from your system, or is it just something that it's cost that's not even worth it?
there are things that can detoxify you, but it takes years, right?
Oh,
Mhm.
And
wow.
that's why I say the noose is pretty thoroughly tightened, right?
And you're constantly
So
bombarded with it, so
yeah.
Every single day.
Yes.
So could you convincingly pull off a UFO, an alien invasion hoax, right, with just holographic technology? No.
Mhm.
You need something that's going to cause real damage,
Yeah.
Right.
kill real people. You've got to, the loss of life has to be real to make the alien hoax believable, right?
Right.
So if you have hologram alien spaceships, high in the atmosphere firing holographic fake weapons at a city, but the city is really burning and people are really dying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the point, right? Which is why
Mhm.
you have to have, and then we have these genetically modified creatures which look like aliens, right? Um, going to be running through the streets where people are going to see them. They're going to be able to take pictures of them and help spread the hoax, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And we have these alien reproduction vehicles, right, which are our UFOs, which are going to be, flying around giving a physical, the holograms have to be far enough away to where your little camera isn't going to be able to discern the difference.
Mhm.
But if that hologram was only 100 yards away, yeah, you're going to see it's a hologram. Like it's not that convincing.
Yeah.
It's only convincing if you keep enough distance, right? So you have just the CGI on TV, you have Project Bluebeam, you have the physical craft, you have the genetically modified creatures, and then you have these invisible energy weapons that will be causing the actual damage and death, right?
Yeah. Multi-layered.
And yeah,
I'm stunned, dude.
Yeah.
Because here we're only scratching the surface from what's available online and stuff, and knowing about the hologram technology and everything like that, and you just took it 3 steps further.
So is it
And-
true? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I've heard you never know what's true and what isn't, but that they have holograms that you can feel almost, like you can touch them, or is that just nonsense to throw us off the path?
I don't know for
Oh,
sure.
yeah, that's fine. I'm just curious. But you
I
already
would
know
I
way
would
more
tend
than I could
to
expect. So
I would tend to doubt it. I mean,
Right.
light
Yeah.
doesn't have mass. I mean, you might be able to feel it in the form of like an energy field, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
not solid, not
yeah,
solid.
that's exactly why I asked. I was skeptical of it, so I was just
Yeah.
curious if you knew anything about that.
But once you acquire knowledge, once you acquire information about, most of the pieces, like we talked about earlier, like learning how to see art. It's, once you learn how to see what's going on in the world, you can use what information you do know to pull out a bigger picture.
Yeah.
Right. So like the jump for just the average person to accept the fact that 5G is a weapon system, right,
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that we have these little phones, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, 5G, 5G, 5G. Your phone is not 5G capable, it's 4G. What's 5G for? Right? So they start looking into what 5G is actually for and the frequencies that 5G operates on. It's a microwave weapon, right? It has no, they can say in the research papers, that it has communications applications, and microwave does. We've been using microwave communications to control valves in water systems, oil wells for decades.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
My family's in the oil business, and my family would use microwave transmitters to turn on and off their oil wells to open up, valves to allow gas and oil to flow through pipelines.
Mm-hmm.
We use microwaves to open up gas and water valves throughout the entire country, right? So this is a proven technology for, communications.
Wow.
But it's also a killer, right? So it was a logical choice to adapt, microwave technology into a weapons platform.
Yeah.
And then like Rufus said, how do you enhance the capability of a weapons platform to make it as effective as possible? The nanoparticle aluminum, getting you to put it in your body. So, see, if you hit somebody with a microwave weapon from a range, right, you're going to feel hot, like burning.
Mm-hmm.
If you're close enough, you may experience burns, but mostly you'll just feel, so uncomfortably hot, you'll move away from it to a safe point. Just like the difference between heating up your coffee in the microwave and heating up your coffee and leaving the spoon in the cup, right? Two very different reactions.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. I'm just stunned, dude.
Yeah.
I'm stunned.
It's crazy.
For
sure.
And they use multiple lines to make things, to make the effect as physical as possible. So, disease, microwave weapons, financial warfare, economic warfare.
Yeah.
And it's my concern that they are going to hit us with all of it at once in one big catastrophic hit. I have serious doubts that the elections are even going to happen next year.
Wow.
Same.
Yeah.
And if they do, that they'll use some sort of mechanism to completely invalidate it.
You say, what does it even matter, anyways?
Right. Because I don't think they're going to take a chance. They learned a lot of lessons, and a lot of the ways they operate, their mentality was born out of the French Revolution, right? The French Revolution was the rise of the Rothschild family, right? Meyer Amschel Rothschild, I mean, he really came into prominence by being able to supply coin to the monarchy during a time of the greatest crisis when the French aristocracy really needed to raise coin to hire British mercenaries.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Before that, Meyer Amschel was nothing more than just a court factor. He was just like a small bean counter within the royal court. Okay. The French Revolution was a real shock to the elites, right? They were completely secure in their power, right? Right up until the moment when the public started chopping their heads off.
Mm-hmm.
And they vowed that ain't never going to happen again, right? They will kill us all before we have a chance to put them on the guillotine again.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So, in understanding the motivation of the elites and what they're willing to do to us, those ideas were born out of what those families experienced during the French Revolution, right? And if you look at what happened during the French Revolution, how they acted to Trump being elected, right? That's, I mean, did you guys think that the whole reaction to Trump presidency was a little overboard?
Yeah.
To say the least.
Mhm.
Yes.
You know, at worst, the guy's only going to be here for 8 years,
Yeah.
right? Now the danger with Trump was not his political skill, or his genius, most of the people he hired that he said, this guy's a great guy. He later had to turn around and say, that guy's a scumbag. Look at Bill Barr.
Yeah.
Bill Barr's an honest, guy of high integrity. And a year later, he's like, Bill Barr's a lying pack of crap. So, it wasn't some, inspired greater skill that made Trump a great president. The threat Trump was to the establishment was he made us believe we could make America great again. And it's the same thing Reagan did.
Yeah.
Right.
In 1979, America was about to become a third world country thanks to the disastrous policies of the Democrats and Carter, right?
Yes.
Reaganomics wasn't a great plan, Reagan wasn't a great leader, but he was like made in America, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the
100%.
it's the faith of the people. The economy isn't this fictitious thing out there in ether. It's us. We're the economy, right?
Right.
How do you know who your daddy is? Because your mama told you so.
Yeah.
Right. So when they say, the guy gets out there and he says, we can turn this around, right? That guy is the threat if he's believable, right?
Right.
And the thing is, when Trump says we can make America great again, the people believed it when he said it.
Yeah.
But when Biden says we can make America great again, everybody looks at him like, up yours, dude.
Yeah, I can 100% attest to that. It's hard to even explain the feeling of what the level, the kind of power that you had when Trump was in presidency, and it's all just, in your mind. But
yeah,
to be honest, it was like when Biden got elected, it took the wind out of us.
Yeah, and that was the kind of president Trump was. I'm not saying he was a good president. I'm not saying he was a bad. I'm really not, political about it.
Yeah, to me, presidents are just it's all division of countries. It's all to divide us. It's all of that.
But I'm about the social engineering aspect and turning it around.
Yeah,
right.
And when you've got a guy, whether he's a coach or a mentor or whatever, and he's like, hey, Bill, I believe in you. You can do this. Come on, brother. Push harder. Win. Right.
Right.
And you trust that guy and you believe in that guy, right? So when he's yelling at you, come on, Bill, win, right? You want to win, right?
Yeah, whatever it takes. Yeah, for sure.
But when you've got somebody that you don't believe in, he's like, come on, Bill, you can do it. You're like, you
can do it. That was my best impression of our current leader.
And so when Trump was president, we actually started having faith and belief in each other and in ourselves, and we were manifesting that in this country. Things were getting better.
Yeah.
Right?
So he's not commander in chief. I gotta hit you with that. Come on, man. Is Trump still commander in chief?
Legally, no. Like,
I think he's referencing the Q stuff.
Oh, no. I mean, whether he lost fair and square is irrelevant. It's still a loss. Biden is still in the White House, right?
Okay.
Whether the election was stolen or not, the ultimate reality is Biden is the one signing executive orders, not Trump. Personally, I think the entire election was corrupt as hell.
Yeah.
And and I said many years ago, before this whole thing started, if you're going to put the voting systems in the hands of electronic voting machines that are networked, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, it's
right?
over.
You're basically leaving a wide open hole for fraud, right? And someone's going to exploit it sooner or later.
Definitely.
If it hadn't been, Biden in the last election, it was inevitably going to happen, right? If we don't put systems into place that really ensures one citizen, one vote, right? And that's the thing, citizens vote. What do you want to say? Hey, no person is illegal. We're not saying that people are illegal. We're saying that the process by which you came to the country was illegal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the reasons for immigration policies is you can't just let any, Tom, Dick, or Ahmed walk across the border.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a reason for it.
You don't know if they're diseased. You don't know if, they mean harm. Like, you got to come through a port of entry. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what illegal means, right? And then you have states like, what is it? It's either Michigan or Wisconsin, one of those states. They're allowing illegal immigrants to become police officers. It's like we've distorted reality to the point where the word illegal is not even understood in anything other than a political context.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's one thing that's got to be,
we
put
got a
first
lot of
is,
work.
Or if a
Yeah.
We
cop's
got a
trying to
lot
extort
of
money
work
out of
to
you.
Yeah.
and we got to really teach our children and encourage each other to accept reality on reality's terms. You can feel however you want to feel,
Yeah.
like, the
Yeah.
touchy-feely thing,
Mm-hmm.
but your feelings are not real.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're-
You may feel like a pretty princess today. It doesn't mean you are a pretty princess. Okay.
Exactly.
Some people
Damn
might
it.
think that.
Feel any way you want about it. You can feel that, immigrants need to be treated well when they come into this country. And yes, they absolutely should. Somebody wants to come and be a part of our society, we should treat them well. Right.
Yeah.
But we should not overlook a whole bunch of stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like gender.
And try
Like
and say it's the same
male,
thing.
Yeah.
female.
It's like,
Dude, I want to tell you, man, I want to thank you because honestly, I knew it was going to be awesome, but it super exceeded my expectations.
Blown away.
And
Oh,
like
glad.
your wealth of information and knowledge has just
I
been.
know. I feel like I could ask 1,000 more questions, honestly.
Yeah, this could go
Yeah.
on for hours.
Yeah, dude. And obviously,
Yeah.
we don't want to do that, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But dude, thank you so much. And
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. That's why my interview with Connie ended up being 6 hours
Oh, I
long.
know.
20,
wow.
I mean, if
22 parts.
you don't have to confirm now, we can talk later, but we would love to have you back and kind of just pick up where we left off. It's your call, obviously.
Absolutely. And
You're welcome here anytime. If anything comes up new and you just want to get it out and want to talk.
when do you think you'll have yours up and running?
Oh, I'm gonna probably do a small little test one this weekend.
Awesome.
Nice. Nice. Yeah,
When
if you
do
want
it,
to push
can you
that.
send it over to us? I'll definitely help boost it as much as I can. Whatever my reach is your reach, man.
Mm-hmm.
People need to hear what
Yeah.
you have to say.
Yeah, we're all
Anything-
about that.
Anything you want out, you can private message me and say, just, hey, can you retweet this? I have no problem with doing that.
Absolutely. Any one of
Yeah.
us.
And there's things that I mean, the reason why I'm starting my own and it's called Savage One is because there's things I won't say on other people's shows or people's podcasts because it may affect their standing and it could even get them deplatformed.
Right.
That's the stuff we want to hear one day. But yes.
We're all about pushing the envelope, as they
Yeah.
say.
Oh, we lost YouTube a while ago. As soon as we started talking about the vaccine,
The
bioweapon.
C-19.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
It's over, man. It's over. You don't have to say that.
But dude, honestly, interviews like this are exactly why we started this in the first place, man. And we're
Yep.
just trying to pass on information to whoever's willing to listen.
Exactly.
You know, so on my own show, I'm gonna go. I'm planning on going complete rape, date, scorched earth. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Sign me
And
up.
I will be tuning in.
Yes, post
Sign me
those
up.
links. I will listen to every episode. I promise.
Absolutely.
I can't wait.
Robert,
You know,
it's
go
been
ahead
an
and ban me.
it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Honestly,
I'm
it's
glad.
been an absolute
Yeah,
glad to
pleasure.
thank
be
you
here.
so much, man.
So
So,
yeah, we will
anytime,
be in
guys.
touch, and we will hopefully talk again and go over a bunch more stuff together.
Yeah, if you ever have a hole in your schedule, or you need somebody, like like I said, I've got at least 3.5 more months of recovery. So
Oh.
my
It's
schedule
like
is not
COVID all
packed.
over again.
Yeah.
What that translate to me is I'm going to make a hole in our schedule to have you
Yes,
back.
absolutely, dude.
100%. It's not no bullshit at all. I honestly feel like I could pick your brain for hours, man, hours and
For
hours.
sure.
So
Oh yeah.
For
I
sure.
look forward to it, and we appreciate you coming on this time, and just in advance, we appreciate you coming on in the future because this was amazing. I had
Oh,
high
thanks.
expectations, and you have exceeded them.
Oh well, thank you. And I'll message you with my phone number so you can get a hold of me a lot easier.
Awesome, yeah, because sometimes you miss messages on Twitter and stuff. I do all the time, so that's much better. So yeah, send that over, and we will definitely talk again in the future, man.
Yeah, and I'm designing a whole offensive line of T-shirts. Like I just released the first one. It says "Folding chairs matter."
Oh god! And where can we find those? Because I'm gonna buy some.
Yeah, drop it.
I put it on my website, but it's on my Twitter feed. I put the folding chairs matter one up
awesome.
already.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we'll drop.
What
We'll
was
make sure
your
to add the
website?
links.
RobTreat.com.
RobTreat.com. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll put everything on the description.
And say
So
your
that,
Twitter also. We'll put it in there, but say it. Go ahead and say
Yeah, and
it.
any links you got, just send them Ted's way or my way, and we'll make sure they get up.
I've also got one of Joe Biden that says I'm going to put y'all back in chains. Like,
Nice.
I need all of these. You're gonna have some customers soon. So yes.
So if I'm not on Twitter, I'm designing something rude.
Amazing. Amazing.
Dude, I love the shirt that you're wearing right now too. Is that
Yeah.
something to do with the Navy SEALs?
Oh, yeah, it's a grunt style or grunt style one. Embrace the suck. It's the military saying,
Yeah. Yep.
All right, brother. Well, I guess we're out of here. And
All right. Well, thanks for having me, and y'all have a great evening.
You
Yeah,
as
thanks,
well,
dude.
man.
Have a blessed one.
All right, gentlemen. Everybody have a great night.
All right. Talk to you
Good
later.
night, y'all.
Night.